Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Campfire talk for tonight. Thank you all for showing up. I know folks are still streaming in, but if you are already in the room, which you are because you can see me or hear me, feel free to introduce yourself in chat. You can go ahead and say your name, where you're from currently right now, what part of Black Rock City you're from, what camp you're from, just something about yourself. So please stick that in the chat and so we can see who has shown up today. Looks like we have 32 people here, so thank you all for joining us tonight. I'm just going to get started because we want to get a lively discussion going, but my name is Level. I am the placement manager for Black Rock City. Good to see you all here tonight. Or maybe it's day where you are. Sorry to be so focused on just being in my time zone. This is a campfire talk about called Will You Be My Neighbor? Creating Community Beyond Your Camp. We all love Black Rock City, and I know one of my favorite things is roaming around and seeing who's next door and who's across the street and who's around the corner. That's part of the fun of Burning Man and part of the fun of the whole experience. Today, we wanted to talk about how camps are good neighbors, who are good neighbors, what makes a good neighbor, how you make an effort to be a good neighbor. And we're also, again, trying to think about this outside of just Black Rock City. So the questions that we'll have will kind of surround that. We have some housekeeping things to go over and just some instructions about how to participate. So I'm going to pass it over to PETA, who is on the camp support team, to help explain how tonight will work. Go for it, PETA.
Thank you. Hi, welcome everybody. I'm glad that you're here. Brian, if you want to put up that slide. So we just have some meeting guidelines. They're also in the chat, or they'll be continually put in the chat, but just remember to mute yourself if you're not a panelist. Be respectful in your participation. Share the air. When we do open the talk to comments, just remember that there's probably other people who want to speak as well. So share the air, we'll be more efficient that way. Be present. We're all here to learn together. So let's be gracious with our attention and speak from your own experience. As we do our discussion with the panelists, please feel free to ask questions or to share your stories using the chat feature. So if you have a question, you can put it right into the chat feature. Just write the question right in there. And one of our moderators will line up the questions and then present those questions to the panelists. If you want to share a story or a comment or some feedback, either raise your hand in the chat or write the word hand in the chat feature, and then a moderator will also queue up the interested speakers and call on you to share. So I think that's what I have to share for right now. Thanks very much.
Thanks, PETA. Yeah, and we do, we have a panel set up, but we also know that experts in Black Rock City are just everyone that's there. So we do want to invite participation. Just want to make sure that we give space for everyone to be able to contribute if they like. So you might notice that I might call on certain people. I think we're just trying to share the air, so just pay attention to that. All right, we're gonna start off this session with a Zoom poll, just to kind of get a temperature of where people are at and what you're thinking. So our very first poll is, what is your favorite time of day in your Black Rock City neighborhood? Is it early morning, midday, late afternoon, or night? We know there's things going on at every single hour, every single minute. So what do you like the best? Looks like most people have filled it out. We have a few more rolling in. This is the results are interesting. I can see the results live. I'll share them with you in a second. All right. Going once, going twice. Oh, there's one just came in. Gonna go going once, going twice, going 3 times. I'm gonna end the poll now. So let's see. It looks like a crowd favorite here is early morning, but not by a whole lot. We have a pretty even distribution between midday, late afternoon, and night, which is great. Actually, some of us are early birds, some of us are night owls, some of us are all of the above. So thanks for participating in that. I'm curious if we had another question about what time of day are your neighbors the most neighborly in Black Rock City, what that would turn out to be. But we won't go there just yet. All right, so one thing that we'd like to do is to allow folks, just so you don't hear a bunch of talking heads, to be able to meet each other too. And so we are planning to divide you all up into smaller groups so that you can say hello and hopefully meet a person that you haven't met before. And to elaborate more on that polling question, tell us about, or talk to each other about like why it is you like that particular time of day, and get to know one another. So Brian from Camp Religious as Fuck is our technical guy pushing buttons. And so I think he's setting up those groups right now. Brian, are we ready to split people up?
Yeah.
All right, so stay tuned.
I have it set up, but I don't know how to start it.
Let's see. How do we start this?
Start breakout rooms at the bottom of the little pop-up that you have. I do a lot of Zoom stuff.
No, it says recreate options, add room, or open all rooms.
Open all rooms is what you want.
Yeah, it won't let me click on there. Not happy with that.
Let me see. Let's see.
Maybe you need to be made an admin.
It looks like these. Okay, I'm just going to set up the breakout rooms. We're going to randomize them because I don't think the preset ones work now. So you may or may not have a facilitator. That's totally okay. We want you all to be in groups of like 4 to 5 people. So I'm going to create these now. Once again, just say hello, get to know a neighbor on your screen, but hopefully a neighbor in Black Rock City. I'm going to create these rooms now, and you can go ahead and join them. And we'll bring you back in about 10 minutes. And I will send a warning. Hello, hello. Did you get an invitation to join a room? Maybe not. There we go. Sander, it seems like you might be having trouble going to a room. Let's see. Hi, Sharon. We are in breakout rooms right now, so I'm gonna stick you in one. It's really just to say hello and meet some new people. So I'm gonna send you over to one, and you can come back in about 8 minutes. Sandra, are you there? I don't know if you're, maybe you joined, are you logged in twice? Is Miss V Dub, is that Epiphany? Is that you, Epiphany? Or someone?
Hi, no, my name is Heather. I am part of VW Bus Camp, but not Epiphany.
Ah, hello, hello. Everyone's in breakout groups at the moment, so I just assigned you to one if you want to just join that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, everyone's gonna come back in maybe 5 minutes, so I want to give you a chance to meet people. Okay, great. Okay, let's see. This. Hey, Mark.
Hey, Level, how are you?
Pretty good. How are you?
Good. Good to see
Good
you.
to see you. We have everyone in breakout groups. I don't know if you want to join one or we can also just chat.
Sorry I'm late.
No, you're fine. This is a very casual event, so there's no need to be sorry.
How's it going? I like your background.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's nice and cozy up in these
Calm.
woods. Yeah.
I know.
How are you doing? I know that, you know, I probably owe you an email about helping out, but it's not because I have forgotten about you.
No, man, you've got a lot on your plate. Don't worry about it. I figure if and when it's, you'll reach out.
Yeah. How are things with you? How are things with Laka Laka?
They're good. We just went through kind of an assessment with our group in terms of, are we coming back? If so, in what way? How do we do a healing dome? How do you do a healing dome? We basically did a little mini version of what you guys did with our community, just to say, do you want to come back? And if so, what would the terms be? And I think, and it kind of echoed, it felt like the Burning Man community in terms of a majority of people were like, if we can all be vaccinated and if it's safe, we want to come back, and kind of a wait and see.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting, obviously.
Yeah, this is an evolving year and
Seriously.
we're all figuring it out together. So
I'm excited for it though. I think if we can figure it out, I think it's going to be I think it's a reset. I think it's a really nice time to do it in a different way this year.
yeah. I had a meeting yesterday actually asking some new volunteers that we brought on for placement, and I just asked, how would you like it to see change, or what would you like to see different? What is the reset? What does that mean? I think that's a really, I hope a future one of these events will cover that, because that's gonna be critical. And actually, we're starting to plan the camp symposium, and that's absolutely one of the things we'll be discussing, because it is an opportunity to do that. So yeah.
Yeah, to take the pressure off of like how big you have to be and how much of an event you have to be and all that, which I really like.
Yeah. Hi, Buck. Hey, Sharon. Folks are in breakout rooms, but we're gonna get them back in like a minute or two. So we're just having a little chat here if you wanna join us. Hello. You're muted, by the way. I just see like a Muppet mouth moving. You're still muted. Do you know how to unmute? There's like if you look at the bottom
There you
left
go.
corner.
That better?
That is better. Yes.
Good. One of those days.
Well, hopefully it just starts looking up if it's one of those days.
Already has.
I think that's the catch twist for 2020 is you're muted.
Yes.
It continues in 2021.
Indeed.
Where are you hailing from, Buck?
From Portland, Oregon.
Portland.
Yep.
How are things in Portland?
It is, Portland, drizzly, in the 50s, and we're trying not to burn the place down too fast. So yeah, it's Portland. Crazy as ever.
Crazy as ever. Yeah. I don't think it's the only place that's crazy as ever.
No, but yeah, no, love it. Love being here.
All right, I'm gonna actually ask everyone to come back. So if you both want to mute yourselves so that we can bring them back. But thank you both for being here. Thank you, Sharon. I know you're muted. I don't know if you're trying to talk, but thanks for being here tonight too. I think there's about 35 people here, something like that.
Can you hear me now?
I can definitely hear you loud and clear.
Okay, I'm sorry to unmute myself, but I'm having trouble with my webcam. So I can't see you, but I can hear you.
Hey, hearing is half the battle. So glad you can hear.
Thank you.
Welcome back, people. So Sander, you're on 2. You're logged into twice. Got it.
I didn't go to one of them, so
Yeah, that's all good. I was like, what's going on? Welcome back, everyone. I hope those were good breakouts and you got to make some connections. Thank you all for joining. We have a few more people here that have joined us since, but if our new folks who have joined us, if you want to type in just like a quick hello and where you're hailing from, what theme camp you're from, that would be great. How was that? People feeling good? Got to meet someone new? Okay, thumbs up. Awesome. So we are gonna move on with the program. Again, tonight's topic is, will you be my neighbor? What it takes to be a good neighbor, what it means to be a good neighbor in Black Rock City and beyond. We have a panel with us tonight, and I'm going to introduce all of them. Like I said, again, we always assemble these panels because we know there's amazing people that have good things to say, but also you could be a panelist as well one day, if not tonight. So just know, the idea here is that we want to get a conversation going, and these people have exemplified and have thoughts on the topic. So the first is Prince Barron. Prince, do you want to say, just unmute and just say hello and wave?
Hi, everyone.
There's Prince. Great. So Prince lives in Oakland, California, is married to Jared Barron, and is the current camp daddy at Yummy RUMinations. At its core, Yummy RUMinations is an irreverent exploration of self and other strange and wonderful perceptions. While the Yums come from a very different from very different backgrounds and belief systems, their collective sense of play as a catalyst for discovery and self-actualization has been the magnetic force that draws them together. Prince's superpower is connecting people, building community, and creating spaces where the magic happens. Hello, Prince. Thanks for joining us. Next, we have Farhad and friends. Farhad, do you want to unmute and just say hello so we can see you on the top of the screen? Farhad. Is he still here?
Sorry, yeah, I'm here. Sorry.
There you go.
Friends, bad at unmuting. Sorry. Hello.
Hello.
Universal. Hi, Mike.
I will introduce the rest of your bio. So Farhad is from the Camp YOUniversal and it's capital YOU Universal, has been the lead and administrator and organizer of Camp YOUniversal since their first burn in 2005. YOUniversal started as a group of mostly Iranian American friends going to this rave in the desert, that rave that we all love going to. Or so they thought. They started an annual pilgrimage to build a Persian tea house theme camp. There are now over 70 campmates from all over the world, from 6 months old to 88 years old. And they dish out mostly Persian themed exotic teas, sherbets, along with other desert friendly treats and healthy doses of Persian mysticism doused with overwhelmingly, but not natural, Persian hospitality. So they have a big, so anyway, Farhad's on the channel, Farhad and friends. Hello, Farhad, thanks for joining us. Next we have Wheat Thin. Wheat Thin, can you just unmute and say hello really quick?
Hello.
There we go, thank you. So Wheat Thin is from JOBI Coffee Tea or Me, which stands for, JOBI is JOBI, joy of being in. It's the opposite of FOMO. So we all want more JOBI in our life because wherever you are is where you belong and bring the joy. Coffee Tea or Me is their sunrise coffee tea, cacao or cocoa service every morning of the event. And there's about 20 to 25 people in their camp. They're really deliberate about creating a strong community year round, both on and off playa. And many of their campers are from around the world, though many are also based in the Bay Area. So that is Wheat Thin. I'm going to move on to introduce PETA. PETA, do you want to unmute yourself?
Hello.
There's PETA. PETA, actually known more well-known as Mama Bear for the FAFA family, has been a co-lead for FAFA Camp for a number of years. FAFA was created in 2010 by a close group of international friends with a focus on fun, creativity, inclusion, and family. And in the last 11 years, FAFA has blossomed to include campers from all over the globe, as well as North Americans who are multilingual, multicultural, and who have lived extensively outside of the US. So that is PETA. We're gonna move on next to introduce Alex Hudson. Alex, do you wanna unmute and say hello?
Good evening, good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, wherever you might be in the world.
Thanks, Alex. So Alex first went to Burning Man in 2006. By the next year, in 2007, he was running his own camp called Camp Krusty with a K, and found its home at 9 o'clock in L. Over the years, Camp Krusty morphed into an art support camp for Hibikozo, and now is just a flag he puts up for his friends to find him as he works around the org and helps to run First Camp, which he's helped since 2017. So hello, Alex. All right, next we have Sarge. Sarge, do you want to unmute and say hello?
Hi, everybody.
Hey, so Sarge has been burning since 2001. Her first time at the Big Burn was in Stag Camp back in 2008. It was a rogue themed camp in open camping, and she eventually became the camp lead of that. We really wanted to make sure that it wasn't just all place camps on this call. So thank you, Sarge, for joining us to show that you can go to Black Rock City, be a fantastic theme camp, and not be placed. She left the theme camp life for a smaller and more independent open camping community and went back in 2017 and plans to keep living on in the burbs when we get back to BRC. So that's Sarge. All right, so that's our panel. Lots of great people, lots of great thoughts. The first thing that I wanted to toss up as a question, and feel free to, for our panelists, please feel free to just unmute and join in. If someone's talking already, go ahead and just raise your hand and I will start the queue. And then if you're not on the panel and would like to join in, go ahead and stick hand in the chat. And also, if you have a question, remember, just go ahead and stick it in chat and we have people keeping an eye out for it. Okay, so my first question is, describe the qualities of a good neighbor and neighborhood. What are the things that you are really looking for when you're like, oh, I hope so-and-so lives next door, but you don't have a particular person or group in mind? Like, what kind of things are you looking for? Looks like Alex unmuted.
I was just gonna say, just respectful. I always remember, like, didn't matter what you were up to or what you're into, but just always being respectful of the people to your right, to your left, and to behind, and kind of like gradually getting to know one another and creating and sharing safe boundaries for what was like acceptable, behavior, but also just like how to communicate. If something bugs you, mention it. If something's not right, say so. Like, thanks for, just communication and being respectful was always a helpful thing.
Yeah, see people nodding their heads. Yeah, what else are you looking for, Prince?
Yeah, I'm just gonna, Alex picked mine. We were just like in unison. So respect was definitely what I was gonna say, because I think it's really important. And it can even go down to when a neighbor loans you a screwdriver or a tool. Respect is when you say you're gonna return it, and then you return it. But then I'm also thinking about when you see people and how you talk to people, how do you communicate with people who are riding by, and how you deal with just everyone when it comes to noise and everything. Respect is just the overarching word that I was thinking about.
That's great. Respect is key. Weathan.
Yeah, I was going to say, I break that question kind of in three parts. What makes a good neighborhood? I think first and foremost, a great placer, because we all just show up and somebody else has created the neighborhood for us. And a great placer can create a great neighborhood. And hello to Papa Bear and the 9 o'clock sector, which everyone knows is the best sector of the city. In terms of what makes a good neighbor, I break it into two parts. There's front of house and back of house. Front of house is, can you work with the neighbor next to you in your interactivity, if you can, to integrate it with their interactivity or to help out with it and go back and forth in what you're presenting to the city and how you decorate. Some of us in 9 o'clock have begun to coordinate our look so that when you come through at night, it's like it's somewhat integrated in what you see and it's attractive. But the big one is back of house. How do you get along? I mean, from the moment you hit playa, it's not just respect, but putting everything down and going and greeting the new person as they arrive on playa, and then saying, hey, look, we're here not just to be next to you, but for tools, you need help, we'll drop everything, come over and help you lift that thing or barn raise or whatever it is. And then of course, throughout the burn, respect. How do you deal with lot lines in the back and equipment and creating passages for each other to be able to go through the camp with their bikes and so forth, and really sharing the space and not getting really possessive about where the little blue flags are. Pulling them up and working together. The back of the house thing is everything to me.
Thanks, Weathan. Yeah, I think, I'm curious, are there kind of rituals that you have in thinking about your neighbors? I know, some folks always make sure that as soon as they see them arrive, go out and make sure that you say hello, and others have, maybe you're giving out milk and cookies, I don't know. Yeah, what kind of things do you find that you do to make that initial introduction and that initial sort of trust building and respect building? Sarge, I see your hand.
Well, I just wanted to say, like, with open camping, it's actually really important that, like, when you get there, as soon as you see like people coming in, like you're talking about respect and communication, that's one of the most important things out there, because everybody sort of has to work together to build a weird block out of just random camps. And you'll start off with one idea of what you want to do, but then it's getting late and this person pulls in and they say they're only going to take this much space. And so you find a way to like squeeze their camp in between your two other camps. And yeah, I think a lot of that, like, it's just, you have to put yourself out there and just talk to people and work together.
Thanks, Sarge. Farhad.
I would add to this. Of course, respect is very important, but also having the right attitude within your own camp. You're at Burning Man, and you're there to connect to people. You're there to give a gift, to be there, and so reaching out, having the right attitude, and having the 10 principles sort of already inoculated in your own camp, and have everybody kind of thinking about what they're doing here. There's always people it's their first time and they might not know. But just having that and a smile is always a very good thing. Smile and lean forward to meet people, meet the other camps, and make it happen. Leaning into it, wanting to be part of that experience is very important. Knowing what the principles are, I think.
Yeah, acculturation is key for the full Burning Man experience, but I think it really says a lot about, especially what you call home on Playa, and where you have to be around people for a whole week. Peta.
Yeah, I agree with everything that everyone said. And the other thing is kind of being present in the neighborhood, having a look to see what's going on with your neighbors, because sometimes they may not be able to come on over to say that they need help, but you might just be sitting there and having a look and like, whoa, it looks like, they might need some help over there. I'm just going to hop over there and give a hand. I just feel like that's a really important part. It's the participation part. That's kind of as we talk further, but that participating in your neighborhood also really helps to bring that neighborhood community as you kind of share and play together.
Thanks, Peta. I noticed a couple really interesting points in chat. So I'd love to invite Yay to speak up, or Buck. Yay from Destiny Lounge. Are you there? Just to kind of explain what it means by being a fluffer for.
Yeah, well, I'm the camp mom and the fluffer. And so during build, and I'm not a heavy lifter. So during build and strike, I go around pretty much on the half hour with a tray of yummy things, whatever, pickles, melon, this, that, coconut water. Keep an eye on people because, we all know they will work until they drop. Keep an eye on people so that when somebody needs to sit in the shade for a minute and have a break, I say, it's your turn to take a break, go. And I also take care of the neighbors. So I watch for when the neighbors land. We usually get there before our neighbors do. And so as soon as they land, I'm right there with a tray of food, saying hello, welcoming them to the neighborhood. And that goes all during build and all during strike. And then we often, not every year, but we often host a block party Sunday night when they open the gates. So while people are streaming in, we're all having a block party and meeting each other. So then, if something comes up in the middle of the week, that could be a bone of contention, then I'm Yay with the food, right? So I get to go over there and say, can you turn those speakers a little bit or whatever, So it has always served me well. I've lived in 4 camps. I started going in 1999, and I've lived in 4 camps, and every time a camp decided not to come the next year, I moved in with the next door neighbors. So it has served me well too,
Yeah, that's a sign of success when you actually decide to move in with your neighbors rather than just remain neighbors.
Yeah, and I've been in great camps, so yeah,
that's great.
It's worked really well.
Yeah, I'm curious with our panelists, do you have assigned people as like the welcoming committee, or is it just an ethos that you get everyone to make sure that they're really welcoming and friendly? Yeah, any thoughts? And then Sarge, I'll call you in a second. I see some unmuted people. So Wheaton and then Alex.
Yeah, it's part of our build culture. that whenever a new camp lands, we will all of us stop and go over and greet them together collectively. And we particularly do it when we find out there's a new camp. If they're noobs in the hood, we do what we can to basically adopt them, because we know they're going to run into problems and they're going to be too embarrassed to ask. And so we just go over ahead of time and say, look, we're here. And we introduce them to our camp leads, especially.
Yeah, that's great. Alex and then Sarge.
Yeah, we started a group. There's a team of us at First Camp called the Homecoming Committee. So that literally that's our job. Part of it is organization and getting ready to build, but then it's like when the gates open and guests start arriving, it's our job to, as the Homecoming Committee, to like bring people into the camp, show them infrastructure, show them how things work, show them where the check-in list is, show them where they're going to show up for their shifts, show them how how everything works. So that way because a lot of the times we'll have people who've never been there before, they don't feel so lost. And so there's like 4 of us now on the Homecoming Committee. And so we switch. So there's always like a one person on and then a backup for each day. And we switch our shifts. And we found it's really helpful because that way, and it's great because the people that are returning, they know the drill and it's less work. And then the people that are new, they're not left feeling like, I don't know where I am and I don't know what to do.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I think I see some head nods in the crowd. I think people have some similar things. Sarge, you can go next.
I know for me, like Peter was saying earlier, being present and noticing what's going on adjacent to you, that's one of those things that I do. And I just sort of like wait for my opportunity, whether it looks like a neighbor needs help or whether they might appreciate a nice cold bottle of Orangina because there's no better drink to offer on the playa. And like, I just sort of go over and put myself out there and, if you need anything, I've been doing this for a long time and otherwise I'm right over there. And if I'm hanging out, you're welcome to come over and just sort of like putting yourself out there and being open with people.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm curious. I saw some folks mention in chat. Lee, do you want to maybe speak up and say what Square One does?
It's not realistic.
We have a guy who nominated himself a few years back, and he opened the outreach program. And whenever camps show up, he goes with a gift basket and introduces them, figures out if they need anything. And he also asks them a bunch of questions and say, oh, what do you guys do? What do you have? So if in the middle of the week we're in trouble, we always go to Cha and he tells them, oh, such and such camp has what you need. And it's really nice. And when he's not around, we find somebody else to take a spot. But it's kind of cool what he did there, what he started. It works out for us.
Yeah, and I think that kind of goes into the idea of communal effort, right? That we're all there to help one another and not just gift things to one another, but also to say, hey, actually, I need some help here. Farhad.
And and each camp has their strengths. Like our camp is a very strong food and hospitality camp. We have a ton of exotic desserts and desert treats and food. Wednesday nights, we have 600 people we feed, but we're not the most, technically savvy. One year, I remember our entire our entire presentation structure blew over, and we had all our neighbors. They've been fed already by us. They all came and helped re-erect and straighten our poles and fix everything up for us. So I think that's also one of the things that's awesome about communal effort is that you have strengths for sure in each of the camps. Show those strengths and share them, and then others will come to your rescue when your weaknesses show up.
Yeah, that's a great story. I'm curious, amongst just everyone in the room, do you have a story of when a neighbor really came through to help you in some miraculous way? That's part of the whole Playa Provides idea, right? That people will come to the rescue, even if you don't realize you need to be rescued. Do I see a hand somewhere? Nope. Prince, do you want to take that?
Yeah, it's kind of flipping that story, but we had a neighbor that it was a group that came from Paris, and it was their first year at the burn, and we immediately saw them like it looked like everything they had purchased was from Walmart in the sense of like their shade structures and stuff. And I was like thinking as we were building I'm like, oh my goodness, if a storm comes, it's just gonna go blow away. And sure enough, 3 days in, a big storm came and just wiped out their infrastructure and so welcomed them into our camp. And that was like 7-8 years ago, and now they all camp with us. And I have family when we go to Paris. I can't wait till COVID's over because I didn't take my trip there, but I miss them, and they're our family now. So
Thanks. Yeah. Yeah. It could be flipped too. How did you come to someone's rescue? Wheaton.
Yeah, I went in the same nature. A small group came through, and their trailer that they'd been towing caught fire on the way into the burn. And they managed to unhook it and get the propane off of it, but the thing burned completely to the ground, all their equipment, everything, food, clothes, all of it gone. And so we organized a drive in the neighborhood, and everybody in our camp just opened up their personal gear, their costumes. I opened up my commissary, tools, everything. And we just took them from camp to camp. And because we knew everybody, they were not strangers who could be, scamming. It's like, no, we're helping these people. Can you help these people? And we just walked them around the neighborhood and outfitted them for the rest of the week. It was really heartwarming.
That's great. Are there other, I want to open it up now just to kind of the audience and folks that aren't on the panel. Yeah, what story do you have to share about either a miraculous neighbor helping you out or you helping a miraculous neighbor out? I'm scrolling through. Let's see. All right, yay, go ahead, take it away.
Two. So in 2018, we were on the G3G Plaza, and our 26-foot box truck with all of our infrastructure rolled 3 times and dumped everything all over the Joshua Tree Desert. And, people got on Reddit and wherever and got a bunch of people out there. We were already up, but got the truck repacked, or got a new truck, got it repacked, got on the road. We get to Burning Man, and our camp next door to us, so our quadrant of the plaza, they got to their storage in Grass Valley to offload all their infrastructure, and it was empty. They'd been broken into and all of their stuff had been stolen. So there was a lot of sharing between those two camps that year because they kind of cobbled together a bunch of stuff to come out. And we had a bunch of stuff that didn't survive the roll, right? Bent poles and this and that and the other. So there was a lot of sharing between those two camps. That's a big one. And then one year we were next door to the bleachers. You guys know the bleachers, that art car?
Yep.
Yeah. So my camp lead is like a coffee hound. Okay. So he brings like all these quality coffee beans. He forgot his coffee grinder. So he's freaking out. So I'm going all around the neighborhood, seeing if I can find a coffee grinder. And I get to bleachers and they're like, we have a coffee grinder if you have a broom, because we forgot the broom and they need the broom to clean off the bleachers. It's a small thing, but it was like, just neighborly sharing, taking care of each other. It was good.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I have tons of other stories, but that's enough.
Sure. Let's see if other folks want to share, or if other folks have a question. I see Brenda said, who doesn't have a story? Very good point. Who doesn't have a story? All right, I'm gonna throw out another question then. Oh, actually, I'm sorry, Inflation Nation. You guys have your hands up? Inflation Station.
Yeah. This is Christian with Inflation Station. And I just wanted to relate a story in 2019 where we have a container full of supplies, and I showed up earlier than the rest of the camp with the older gentleman. It was just 2 of us. We had been working pretty hard to unload our container, and a neighbor came over and said, hold on, let's give you a hand. And within 20 minutes, we probably did an entire day's work. literally just put everything out. And it was a huge help where I didn't really ask for help, but they came over and offered it and said, hold on, we'll give you a hand unloading. And it was hard work, don't get me wrong. I mean, it was a lot of stuff, but to just get it out of the container onto the playa gave us a huge head start to putting stuff out. So I was too shy to ask for help, but my neighbors noticed and came over and offered help. It was awesome. Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, right? I think that especially once we arrive on Playa, we're still carrying the baggage of the default world. I've noticed even as a placer, going up and be like, "Hi, welcome." People still have some walls up or don't really know how to accept help or don't know how to accept some warmth or maybe they've just had a really long drive and they're just grumpy. But I think that it's important about how do you, and I think that's why I was asking earlier, like, do you have a welcoming committee or, how do you do this? Because I think a lot of people don't know how to be neighborly all the time. And how do you translate what you learn on the playa about being neighborly to the real world? I've heard lots of people say, I know barely anyone that lives like on my block. Yet when we're in Black Rock City, we try to know everyone that lives on my block. And so there's some interesting interplay there about like what makes Black Rock City a place where you can do that and not necessarily your own hometowns. That doesn't apply everywhere. Maybe in bigger cities, people feel more walled than smaller towns, but it is something that we do hear where people feel like, wow, there's a huge difference here. And I don't know that guy that just brought a hammer over, like, how do I trust that person? So those are things that are kind of going through people's minds. I noticed that it looks like Rat Lady wants to speak. So Rat Lady.
One of the things that we always do, because we don't want our neighbors on either side of us or behind us to feel like we're rejecting them before things even start. We have a flag line. You know the flags that are on used car lots that goes around the perimeter of our camp. And we tell them, we make a point of saying, hey, this is not because we're trying to keep you guys out. This is because we have people with brain injuries. We have people, that if they get too far away from camp, especially at night, they can be lost for days. And this way, this gives them a physical reminder. If they're starting to wander out of camp, they hit the flags and know, wait, I need to reorient myself, and figure out where I'm trying to go. But it's important for us to let them know we're not trying to keep you guys out. It's to keep our people safe and in a familiar environment.
That's great. I think, right, those signals that we get might mean one thing when you might intend a whole nother thing. And I think it's interesting, we get camps in placement that ask like, how do I make sure that I'm really welcoming? And I think that sometimes just signs can help people to say like, you are welcome here. Or, I know we all love those barkers that say, come on in and get a shot or a hot dog or whatever. Though that may be a form of welcome, but it also is inviting people in. And so I think negotiating borders and having flags up and explaining what those flags are is part of that as well.
I highly recommend handlebar mustaches. People like that standing in front and ushering people in. It really, really helps. Take notice.
Right, everyone in your camp have one person to grow a handlebar mustache. Jeff, I see your hand up.
Yeah, so I feel like this is the sort of thing where we all definitely have stories. But so my camp always does food. And so we do, generally large scale operations every morning for General Playa, and then we do food nights every day for our camp. And inevitably, because we always, radical self-reliance, we always make way more food than we need. And so then at the end of the evening, we try to gift it to any of our neighbors. And this has gone over quite well in some years, where one of the camps that was next to us, apparently there was like miscommunication across the camp, and no one brought any food for their dinners at all. So they ended up like a bunch of them were like going hungry, and like we basically fed an entire second camp for 1 year for their evening meal activities, which was awesome. And similarly, we've also been helped out a ton from other camps. Like coming into Playa 1 year, our van hauling our trailer broke down, and it was one of those things where it's like we ended up spending like 24 hours on the side of the highway because it was pre-build, and we managed to find like a random group of people. I don't even know which camp they were in. They were just super like, yeah, we'll grab this and drop it off for you. And so they just like hooked up our trailer, brought it to us, and somehow actually found where we were going to be placed and dropped our trailer for us. And at some point we're like, we're never going to see this again. But the playa provided, and was just like a huge help and awesome. And yeah, the burning community is always amazing when stuff just kind of works out. When you need help or you're able to help people. It's just fantastic.
Thanks, Jeff. Sander, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I actually have my hand up for Buck, who said hand in chat. So Buck still has a question.
Thank you. Apparently the hand icon thing doesn't work for me. We have a guy from India in our camp, and he is an amazing cook. And so for the Saturday night before it opens, we always cook a huge extra meal that will feed an extra 20 people or so, and then make sure that our neighbors next to us get invited. By then we've met them, and food, of course, makes everybody happy. Also, just the words, will you let me help you? Can I help you? When you just walk up to somebody who's struggling with something, or do you need a tool, whatever, just that offer we found was helpful.
Thank you, Buck. And thank you, Sander, for helping Buck get a chance at the mic. I want to switch gears a little bit to talk about, we've talked a lot about what it means to be a good neighbor, and what it takes and what we can do to cultivate those relationships. I'm curious, how people have also dealt with conflict with a neighbor on Playa. How have you sort of found resolutions? And maybe there's some crazier stories here. But thank you, PETA, for volunteering for tribute and starting off to answer this question.
Yeah, I think, what we found is the best thing to do is to just go talk to your neighbor directly and really assume good intent, right? And I could share this, I think, Farhad.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, this is probably one of the best stories ever. And this is what has really endeared YOUniversal to FAFA Camp, is that when we early build and they give out this wonderful sherbet. So they have a refrigerator truck. Well, the refrigerator truck generator was going all night long. And that's right where our the back of house was for our camp, where all the tents are and everything. And I'm just lying there. I'm like, oh my God, is this what it's going to be? We're going to hear a generator all night long. And so we woke up and we're like, oh my gosh, we don't know. And so we sent our emissary over there, and YOUniversal Camp was just so mortified that they had, inconvenienced us. But again, we went with kindness and just say, gosh, this is a bit of a problem for us. And so not only did they solve the problem by not having that refrigerator truck on all night long, but they came back and they brought us a big bowl of fruit to share with the camp as as an apology for the inconvenience. And I mean, Farhad, you might talk about it a little bit about how you felt it on your end as well.
Well, I mean, we are leaning in on hospitality, and we weren't thinking of all the different the implications of that. And when we found that, that's what we leaned in more. So with hospitality, we bring food, we bring bunch of poetry books and read. We over attacked with love. That's the motive, that's the MO here.
Exactly.
And I think that's again back to sort of what's the point of being out there is to work through stuff, you know, whatever it is, whether it's the elements or it's neighbors or whatever, and you if you're leaning in, everything works. And then you guys were one of the best camps we've ever been next to. Yeah, we took your feedback and we responded as best as we could.
And I think it all goes back to the first issue first thing we were talking about, and that's a matter of attitude. You know, if you have the right attitude, if you're there with an intention to give joy as much as enjoy, you know, you realize, whoops, in the process of trying to give joy to some people, we deprived some people of their tranquility with our, you know, engine going off probably all night long. So we tried to, you know, fix it as fast as we could.
Lead into your strengths.
And once again, we apologize.
I wanted to say the same thing.
This is beautiful conflict mediation live. Thank you for sharing that story. I think, you know, from the placement point of view, I can tell you generators on borders is almost the #1 complaint that we get about camps and why people dislike their neighbors. And there's planning that can happen before that. And I think placement is trying our best to get more information out there about who your neighbors are. So just know that, you know, once we get back out there, we want to make that easier for everyone. But yeah, that's not a common story of, you know, someone waking up and not just hearing a motor running, but smelling fumes and all sorts of things. So yeah, I think that there's ways to avoid it, but I'm glad you found resolution when it's, you know, how do you move a big refrigerator truck in the middle of the night? You can't. I have a hand from Captain Vic, and then we'll take Yay after that. So Captain Vic, do you want to unmute?
Well, I was going to say, it sounds like the camps that have someone that takes the initiative to go around and meet people in the other camps do really well. And it sounds like that's a good strategy. It's probably not the only good strategy, but it's a good one to have a greeter or a person that, or several, who make it their business to go around and get to know the neighbors. We're talking about conflicts, and it's, in my experience, it's always way easier to deal with potential conflicts if you've already been over and talked to them on a friendly basis first. They know you and you know them a little. And then if there's some issue that comes up, it's easier to deal with it than if you have to deal with it cold, especially if you have to deal with an angry person that you haven't met before. It takes a while, takes longer to get that one settled. So we've had pretty good luck with that. We've got a couple of camp members that really enjoy meeting new people and going out, and when that's been working well, it's really been effective. Just a suggestion.
Thanks, Captain Vic. We'll take Yay next, and then actually let me take Wheat then next, and then Yay.
Oh, thank you. We're just unabashedly sexist in how we deal with this. If we have conflict with another camp with whom we don't have an already established relationship, we always send the least threatening female in the camp to go talk to them, and we don't let the aggro guys go over and do it. It's just, if someone's getting aggro, you're not going over there. We'll find somebody who'll go over and talk to them nicely, maybe back them up. But yeah, it's a gender thing. It just helps to diffuse.
Yeah, I think there's really nice men out there too that might be able to do it. And it sounds like to me, just send a nice person over, because there's.
Yep.
Yeah. But I'm glad. Yeah, I think that I think Peta's point of come with kindness and assume good intent is part of what you're saying too, which is like send a really nice person that isn't gonna, escalate, but will de-escalate. Yay, and then Sander.
So back in, I think it was 2008, when we used to get to know who our neighbors were going to be in advance. So we knew that our neighbors were going to be these cowboys who grew up in Elko, Nevada. And they had a reputation all over the playa for being a pain in the fucking ass, playing shitty music, getting drunk all the time, being assholes, just, you know, being cowboys on the loose in the middle of hippie land. So we knew this in advance. So I'm like waiting for them to come and waiting for them to come and waiting for them to come. It's Sunday morning at like 4 a.m., right? So we've been building for 2 days, right? Everybody's asleep. The entire fucking block, the entire city is asleep. And they pull in at like 4 o'clock in the morning with all their crappy vehicles, and they circle up and they get out and they're like, woohoo, fucking A! And I grabbed a bottle of whiskey and I walked right in the middle of their circle and I said, shut the fuck up. Here's whiskey. Just go sit somewhere and drink the whiskey. You're home. Welcome home. We're happy to have you here. They ended up being the best neighbors ever. Okay. We ended up we're so tight now. But I had to meet them where they were at. You know, it was like they were in there like, woohoo, fucking A. And, you know, I was wearing nothing but booty shorts and carrying a bottle of whiskey. It's like, you know, and it was 4 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, look, everybody's asleep. Everybody's been working really hard all day.
But it's Burning Man.
Yeah, no, they got it.
Yeah.
They totally got it. And then 2 days later, when they put up barbed wire around their camp, barbed wire, which they did not light. And our campmates walked into it in the nighttime.
That's a story.
Yeah, and the next day I went over and I went into the women are all making breakfast and the guys are all out front of the saloon, totally fucked up. And I'm like, ladies, we have a problem. Because they put up barbed wire and it's dark and it's not lit. And they're like, oh, they don't do lights. And I'm like, well, we have some red Christmas lights. What'll look like blood on the barbed wire. What do you think? And they're like, let us feed them and talk to them and we'll see. And I said, if they want to see the women who walked into the barbed wire, who have, you know, cuts all over their body, we'll parade them, you know, if we need to do that. And so that ended up getting worked out. And then when some frat boys came through later in the week and tried to take flags from the front of our camp, the drunk cowboys chased them down and took the flags back. You know, it all worked out. It was good.
These are great stories that maybe like the United Nations should hear. Thank you for sharing that. I got Sander next, and then Gary from Radio Electra.
Well, that's who I had my hand up for, was Gary with Radio Electra.
Oh, perfect. Go ahead and mute yourself, Gary.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, as far as sharing resources and getting along with your neighbors, one of the things I like to do is save a little power on our grid. We own our own generator. And so I've got the experience of knowing how much power I can actually feed someone else and not kill our camp. So what I'll do is I'll wait for somebody to start up their noisy gasoline generator. And I'll walk over and I'll say, I tell you what, I will give you free power if you'll shut that goddamn thing off for the rest of the event. And I have never had anybody deny that. They go, really, free power? And I don't have to give you anything? No, just shut that thing off. And it's worked really good.
That's great. Sounds like coming with a gift of some sort always helps. Whether it's like some fruit, a fruit basket, or power, or a bottle of whiskey. Yeah, I guess, you know, the question I kicked this off with was, how do you manage conflict with neighbors? Are there other thoughts about it, about how, you know, you've approached problem solving? I see that maybe there's a mention of rangers out there. Other thoughts about it? Michael, go for it.
Yeah, so we had a group that was camped next to us that had these, you know, giant bus style RVs, not just one, but a whole, you know, bank of them. There were 5 or 6 of them. And we went over and approached them. They pulled in on Monday, and all day Monday night, just generator sounds from all these buses, all of them. And they're all pointing across the street, blowing into all these different camps. And we approached them and asked them if they could, work something out to where they weren't running 24/7. We understand if they're running them during the day for air conditioning or something, but do they have to be on at night too? And the answer was yes, they have to be. And it wasn't just us. We saw, like, kind of one by one, we saw all these camps around us, and they would be sending over their emissary, and they would talk to these guys, and then they would go away, and you'd see the disappointment in their eyes. And then the camp next to us sent somebody over, and the whole neighborhood basically is approaching them, and everyone's getting turned away. So we went and approached the rangers, and we asked them, it's like, look, the whole neighborhood's been approaching these guys and asking them to try and figure something out so the whole neighborhood could live with this. And is there any help that you guys could offer? And their response was, well, we can go talk to them, but we might get the same results. And generators have accidents too. And that was kind of their response. And sure enough, one night we see a guy, he's just had enough, and he kind of went over and started fiddling with a bus, and generators went down. So I don't recommend sabotaging someone else's, but I think you need to try and do the first thing of being an emissary, going over and approaching them. Look, we're all in this together. Can we figure out some way to make this work? We understand you guys have generator needs, otherwise they wouldn't be on. But do they have to be on 24/7? And especially when you get to the point where you've seen 7 different camps kind of get rejected, and they just said no, they're not going to work with you. They're not working with you, or they're not working with anyone else. And so that's when we saw a little ninja kind of take care of business on his own. We all just kind of laughed and went back to business.
Thanks for sharing that, Michael. Well, I'm not going to condone vandalism on this call, for the record.
Either. Yeah, we don't condone
but
that.
I think I hear the point of, like, neighbors need to meet each other halfway, and if people are not willing to meet each other halfway, then that often gets escalated. I probably can speak on behalf of my entire team here, but placement is also here to waive the power that we have in the case that it is a place camp. Again, I think that number one, try to always work it out with your neighbors, just one-on-one, and bring a basket of fruit or offer some whiskey. But aside from that, I think there are some formal ways to do it, and I think we never really want it to get to a place of vandalism. To me, that just shows some really poor people involved in some way, shape, or form. I'm not going to accuse who that poor person is. So Alex is next. Is there someone else? Maybe I missed someone. You are muted, by the way. I can't hear you.
I'm sorry. I said Prince had his hand up and then I came down. So Prince should go first. And
Okay.
I just want to follow up because I had a funny resolution for kind of a story like that.
Okay. Yeah, Prince, go for it.
On the same, it's anyway, I just think it's, anyway, I thought it was interesting. One of the things that we're doing at our camp, we're not there yet, even though I am African-American, is we are working really hard, not just saying this to be the token point here, but it actually works. The work that we're doing in my company about bringing diversity, and therefore, if you create more diversity, you have better outputs. There's a business case to having diversity in the workforce. There's actually a case that can be made also very easily and understandably within camps. So when you have diversity within your camps, not just of people from different countries, different backgrounds, different races, ethnicities, socioeconomic situations, you'll be surprised how that helps in a neighborhood and how that helps address conflict, creating neighborliness, and also helping camp members understand that personal journey that they might need to take to act in a way that isn't so triggering to other people when they themselves have someone that they care about within their own camp that they can relate to. So that's just a push to do the work, to show up at community events, do outreach, to find ways in your community to bring in diversity into your camp. It is a lot of work. It is difficult because the desire can be there, but then it's just like, how do you get people there? But I just look at all these different points that we're discussing, and I do find that bringing in diversity in all of its forms into our camp will help a lot with it.
Thanks, Prince. Yeah, I think knowing different kinds of people and different kinds of communication styles and different ways things are read always adds to your sort of arsenal of how to interact with people in general. And so, yeah, I think I heard a little bit of that from Ye's story about like a group of people that thought, you know, they could act a certain way, and it might be because no one ever really checked them, or they didn't have to come across difference. I'm gonna now call on Alex, and then I have a couple more questions I'm gonna throw out both to our panel and to the rest of the group. So Alex, go for it. Oh, you're muted again.
Here we go. I had a funny story with generators, that's all. And like my last year at 9NL, it was the year I woke up to a gigantic generator being placed by my tent. And we always had a small camp like set up. And they just kept, I was like, I talked to them about it. I was like, can we figure out another place? And it was like a resolution where they're like, well, it's really quiet. And I was like, well, if it's really quiet and you guys have RVs, then we can position it over there and you guys don't hear it. And it was this way that we worked together to say like, they hadn't thought through that, like, it's quiet, so it's outside of camp, but oh, we have actual walls and we have other RVs, so we have things that can create barriers. So again, like finding ways to do conflict resolution by bringing up ideas to people that they didn't understand. And I think it also falls into what Prince was just saying, where it's like, the more diversity you have in the camp, the more perspectives you have, the more perspective you have to like interact with people and find ways to do conflict resolution. Because a lot of the times, the way one person thinks on how they want to like resolve a conflict is not going to mesh with the person that they're talking to. And so when you have like different people from different backgrounds being like, you know what, I think I can understand where this one person is coming from more, or I have a different approach, you can find creative ways to find solutions to things that at first seem difficult, but then you can just find a way to bridge the gap.
Thanks, Alex. All right, I'm going to switch gears a little bit. The question that I have to pose to our panel first, and then open it up to everyone else, is let's give some shout outs to camps that we think are awesome neighbors. So this is being recorded. Maybe we'll share it with those people if they're not on the call. But yeah, what has impressed you about specific neighbors? I think we just saw some neighbor love between FAFA and YOUniversal. What about, yeah, do you have any specific shout outs that you'd like to give to yeah, if we had a virtual trophy to give them for being a great neighbor, who is that?
Yeah,
I see Wheaton. And then,
yeah, I've got several. These are all from the 9 o'clock sector, and these are all people that we've had to interact with because they became neighbors. If I did favorite camps, we'd be here all night. But those Desperados, Klubar, Blitzkrieg, Seven Deadly Sins, Playa Bike Repair was an awesome neighbor, sad to say, Cat's Meow, and Red Herring was one of the best ever. And I'm sorry that camp imploded, but I think they're coming back. These are people who, from the moment they arrived, were interacting, helping, we were helping them, creating co-interactivity where we could. I mean, all the kinds of things we've talked about, all those stories.
That's great. Thank you.
Blitzkrieg's here. Shout out to Blitzkrieg.
Yes, Blitzkrieg is here. Yeah, if you're naming these camps too, just describe a little bit too why you're naming them, just so that, you know, we're not just trying to give people awards and make people feel good. Just also trying to learn about them. So I think Rat Lady and then Farhad.
I would say Eggs Bar has been one of our favorite neighbors. We had another camp who I will not name, who was our worst neighbor ever that was a bar. And their people were coming into our camp, pissing on tents, just being really outrageous. And they said, oh, well, too bad. Nothing we can do about it. So when Eggs Bar was next to us, we were like, oh God. And they were great. If there was ever any problem with drunk patrons, They took care of it immediately. They got creative about how they could block off areas that would keep people from wandering into our camp. And they played different music every day, so you didn't get sick of the same thing next door. One of my favorite playa memories was we'd had a horrible day. It was just, you know, one of those days when everything went wrong. And I was heading off to go talk to a friend of mine in another camp so I could say, oh, this was terrible and that was terrible. And as I'm going by the front of their camp, they're playing Elmo's It's Not Easy Being, or Kermit's It's Not Easy Being Green. And that was just like the perfect thing for me to hear at that point. So yeah, Eggs Bar was a great neighbor.
Great, thank you, Rat Lady. Farhad, and then Sarge.
In 2017 was the year that I was describing when we had a very poor structure. Now we have a nice structure, but for our tea house, but we had a really poor structure. The entire block, whoever was on our block, and you know better than us, Level, because you placed us, who came up and re-erected our crumpled up structure after that big storm. We want to give a big shout out to Lucy.
Yeah, in 2017, we had the Art House Collective next to us. They were a group of musicians and dancers and performers performing to classical and contemporary works in unique spaces. And they had really amazing art juxtaposed, and they would have these performances out in the playa.
Yeah, I got one. If I may. I think it was 2005, our very first year. My shout out goes to Hookah Lounge, where the gentleman who had it constructed said that I go through all of this for the privilege of being able to take your shoes off personally. Right there and then, you know, something clicked in me that, you know, this is not a bird. It sank in for me that he goes through all of these personal expense, time, energy for the, as he put it, for the pleasure and honor of taking each visitor's shoe off. And my shout out goes to him.
Cheers to that person. Sarge, you're next.
Okay. So my shout out goes to 7 Deadly Gins. Several years ago when I was with Stag, they were our across the street neighbors. And we were setting up our shade structure and they were across the street and they saw what we were up to and came over, and like half of them helped us set up our shade, and then the other half came over with shots, and just, it was great. They saw how hard we were working and they were cheering us on, and it was so sweet. And they ended up being like one of the best across the street neighbor camps to have. Like, I felt like we worked like together with them for that whole burn. And whatever that camp was, one year, there was another one that they played the intro music to The Lion King every morning, exactly at sunrise. So you have that big, Savannah, and it was like, it could have been annoying if it wasn't so great and so appropriate. So having that Disney music playing camp they were fantastic.
Thanks, Sarge. That's great. PETA. And I'm noticing just a lot of people writing shouts out in chat, so that's awesome too. PETA, go for it.
Yeah, so I would, other than what we've already mentioned, burner buddies, awesome neighbors, same thing, very helpful, lots of interactivities. Random Pants, want to give them a big shout out because they really, really helped us when we were having a structural collapse one year. Coconuts, also they were across the street from us one year, and then BRC 3PO, who's not in our neighborhood directly, but we just love going over there to visit because again, they just have such a great thing to share. So that's who I'd like to shout out to. Thanks.
Thanks, Peta. Any other ones people want to say out loud? I can read some from the chat. Looks like we have, let me see, I gotta scroll back up. Comfort and Joy has been named. NAAC Burners, Black Rock Beach, Empire of Dirt, Department of Tethered Aviation, Ojai Bureau of Pleasure, Jedi Prime. Some of these I've never even heard of, which I should. I'm the placement manager. Let's see, Black Rock Beach, BRC 3PO, Champagne Camp. Anyone else want to give a shout out while, we're kind of giving the air for people to highlight camps that you love being neighbors with? All right.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. Every camp in 9 o'clock, because that's been my sector forever. And I love 9 o'clock. And all the other camps are great too, but I'm partial to 9 o'clock.
Yes, 9 o'clock love, Papa Bear love. Also all the other sectors love. I will kind of shift gears again. We only have about like 35 minutes left for the call. So we want to be able to give a chance for people to chat beyond the panel too. But one other question I'll toss out is about what are you doing off playa to cultivate, relationships in your neighborhoods? I mentioned this a little bit earlier, just to prime it a little bit. But are there things that you've done on the playa that have translated into the world that you live in, that you are based today? I know that with COVID and the pandemic, it's a little trickier to meet people and things like that. But yeah, how have you been neighborly, or how have you changed your ideas about being neighborly based on your experience in Black Rock City? I have a couple hands already, so we'll take Gary first, and then Lee, and then Jeff, and then Sarge.
I'd like to put out the word around my neighborhood and in the city in general. Since we're a radio station, we have the unique talent to be everywhere at once. And we can be in any camp in Black Rock City at the same time, or all of them. And obviously not everyone listens to us, but we like our neighbors to know that if they've got something going on, that they can just come over to the camp and go, hey, we're going to serve mimosas or whatever it is they have. We're going to have a dance, whatever it is they have planned, and bring them in and put them on the air and let them tell everybody about their project or what they have going on. And a lot of times the DJ is right in the middle of doing their show, and they're told that if someone comes in for an announcement, that they stop the show and let the person get on the air and tell everyone about what they want to talk about. That's all.
That's great. And having a radio station is really unique, I think, compared to what other people offer. But yeah, thank you, Gary. We'll take Jeff, and then I think Lee's after that. Or no, I think Lee's first, and then Jeff.
I took my 3-year-old to the burn in 2019. He was 3 then, and he made a lemonade stand in the front of camp. Our neighbors were Black Rock Lemonade. So we had our own sign, shop local. And when he came back, he wanted to keep gifting things to our neighbors. So we walked around with a box of Band-Aids one day around the whole block, offering Band-Aids. This is when we were still allowed to knock on people's doors. And we gave out Band-Aids to everybody. People were perplexed because they opened the door like, what are you doing here? Like, do you need a Band-Aid? And they would look at my son and they would be like, no, we don't need a Band-Aid. And I gave him this look. I'm like, take a Band-Aid. So that was really fun. But about a week ago, I met up with a bunch of my friends and we were discussing this exact same question. And at first we thought of an idea to prank the whole neighborhood because my friend bought a sex swing and threw the box in his neighbor's recycle bin, but put it on top of the recycle bin. So then a month later, another neighbor walks by and tells him, oh, did you know I saw that they bought a sex swing? And he's like, oh no, are you serious? And he didn't tell him that it was him. And that brought up an idea of, oh, let's create a kit where people can buy and prank their whole neighborhood. Of one neighbor gets a box, the other neighbor gets like binoculars and selfie sticks. And we created this whole fun thing. But then it turned out, you know what, why be mean to the neighborhood? Let's actually create an interactive game where every neighbor gets a flag, posted in the front of their lawn, and they can opt into a game. So we're developing this plan that I'm about to start implementing in my own neighborhood, so I can update you guys maybe in a few meetings. But yeah, we figured, I know all my neighbors on the block at Burning Man, why not create a game for my neighborhood where I live year round? So I'll have an update, hopefully in a few months. I'll tell you how it goes, but it is time that we take the same attitude into the real world.
That's great. Oh, is that your son right there?
Yeah, yeah, he's the lemonade guy.
Where in the world are you, Lee? Just to let folks know, in case they walk by and see a whole bunch of flags. And
I live in Redondo Beach, California. It's in LA.
Great, thank you. All right, Jeff, you're up next.
Yeah, so my camp takes, I guess, food sharing and gifting kind of seriously. So a handful of members a couple of years back actually started a Davis community fridge project. And so in setting up free refrigerators with basically add food to it that you don't need, take food if you need it. And so that's started spreading out to Sacramento as well, where we have quite a few members, and our camp is fairly involved with stocking and doing that, as well as setting up a night market at our various farmers market locations where we save food from restaurants and various other locations before they need to throw it out at the end of the night, and just start giving it out to people in need. So we've done a lot of that, which fits in kind of with Burning Man and also fits in with our camp. We do a ton of like blintzing and other stuff where we make blintzes for various, I guess, ephemeral events that also occur within our smaller community. So we have large Halloween parties and stuff where we've, made a couple thousand blintzes or something for that, and various other things that have occurred. So those are things that we do. Shout outs for other camp though. JOBI Coffee has been trying to organize some stuff for a bunch of, the local camps in the 9 o'clock sector to better meet up, discuss things, work through issues that, camps might have with, so we can sort of be more communal and be more mindful on getting to playa and doing things. And that was, planned to go great. Me and a handful of other campers were going to hang out with them last March, and then COVID started happening. And so things started falling apart a little bit with that, but, so it happens.
Thanks, Jeff. There's a lot of people with their hands raised, so I think Sarge was next, and then Peta, then Farhad.
So a friend of mine, my former property mate, she and I had burned together, and we're talking about how we could like do gifting within our neighborhood. And we came up with this idea. We live in a sort of rural area, and we put up this rack at the end of the driveway and made a nice big sign for it that just said free stuff, take what you want. And we just started sourcing things to put on this little free rack, and every day you'd see a couple of cars stop at the end of the driveway, and whatever we had out there, some of it would be gone. And like, we told our friends about it, and like, if you guys want to, if you have things to give away, we're giving them away. And it was a kind of a cool little anonymous little community building thing. And of course, then COVID happened and we had to take it down, but it's going back up soon.
That's really great to hear. One of my own personal, really interesting things that's popped up is there's this Facebook group in San Francisco called Buy Nothing SF. And people, it's I think there's close to 10,000 people there now who all just are giving away all sorts of things. And, to some people with a lot of need, and it's really, really heartwarming to see how much people are willing to give beyond just being a burner. Peta Farhad, and then I'll take Inflation Station, and then Alex, and then Andre, I believe.
So I live in Sonoma County, and as many of you know, we've had quite a few fires and disasters. And so the the community organizing that I'm involved in right now is something called Map Your Neighborhood. It's an organization that was started in Washington State, and it's a way to kind of structurally or kind of systematically organize your neighborhood. So I might have like 15 homes where we make a list of all the resources that we have and all the needs that we have. And again, I'm in a high fire area. So this has become even more important. And it's just another great way to get to know your neighbors, because again, sometimes I notice something in the chat where you might live next door to people for years and never meet them. But here in this common idea of looking to prepare for an emergency. And so there are a number of different agencies out there. Again, Map Your Neighborhood is one, but if you just put in like emergency preparedness in your county area, you might find that your neighbors or there is some organized organizations that are putting these things together, and that you might think about organizing your own neighborhood in this way.
That's great. If you have a website or something, maybe stick it in the chat and people can see. Thanks, Peter. Farhad.
Well, a couple of things. One is that as the pandemic broke out, our camp consciously decided that, no, not all of our camp, we're about 70 people, but about maybe 15 of us or 20 of us decided that we want to shelter in tribe. And whatever happens, if we're gonna, it's much better to do it as a group and a tribe rather than as individuals. And so, and it works well, because when one of our, actually Afshin came down with COVID, his daughter came and stayed with us, and that was helpful to that family, and so on and so forth. So we decided we're going to shelter in tribe, and that the connection that happens in a camp of burners is, I'm actually going to put this link from Larry Harvey. I don't know if everyone's read Viva Los Xmas from him, in the his memo about how the principles kind of activated through being in a camp build a kind of social structure, of a familial kind of social structure that's missing, a tribal kind of structure that's missing. And so that has been really helpful to us. I mean, we've kind of been fortunate that we haven't lost anyone through the pandemic, but having that type of a tribe to be able to lean on through this and saying to hell, or high water, we're living and dying together. That's a really powerful thing that I think came out of Burning Man. One other thing that's interesting, and I know you know about this level, but I've been kind of nudging the org and asking permission to create Burn B&B, or Burn B for short, which is a website that's very similar to Airbnb, but allows people to gift services, experiences, and everything else. So whatever they're doing in the real world, gift a portion of it to other burners to begin with, and then expand from there. So I've been asking permission politely, and very, soon I'm going to say, fuck it, that's my job. I'm going to just do it and build it if they drag their feet too long. So that's another thing. And Jahan, you had a point I want you to bring up as well.
When which happens very rarely, I encountered assholes in
the default world.
The default world. I try to take a moment and imagine them as fellow burners or potential burners, and immediately my attitude shifts, and it creates a welcoming thing, which also helps them to shift from their position. If you know the guy is a burner, you approach the guy differently than if the guy doesn't even know what Burning Man is. And I take that attitude, and it has echoed back in such miraculous ways. And I strongly recommend it to fellow burners to take that attitude. Just because somebody has not already been to that specific GPS location doesn't mean much. Everybody, in my opinion, is a burner. Some people know about it, some people are not aware of it. And how lucky are we to be able to, tap into the potential burner in all of us.
I love that. That's, it's about the mindset that we approach the world in. And sometimes you feel like you can turn it on in Black Rock City and turn it off when you're just the rest of the 300 plus days of the year. But yeah, that's something you can apply all year long. And I love the other term, shelter and tribe. Is that what you said, Farhad? That haven't heard that one yet, but that's great. Alex and then Andre.
Got it. I was just going to share that I live in Brooklyn, New York, in North Brooklyn, like in Williamsburg, Greenpoint area. And I've been here, I was here all of COVID. I was traveling randomly, like in middle of March, and flew back the day that New York shut down. And I stayed here for all of COVID. And one thing that I found really interesting was that as like things started to reopen slowly last like late summer in like New York, which was frightened from what had happened and was like trying to figure out what happened, was that I would try to go out and like engage like the places and the small businesses that I loved to like let them know I was there to support them. And something I kept on doing was like every day, like when meeting new people, is checking in with them, just saying like, how are you today? And it's something that I found myself doing on Playa. Like when you're on Playa, you're so open and ready to communicate and connect with people. So you were actually just like genuinely asking how someone's doing. And in the past, when you're just dealing with people in your commerce and day to day, you ask that question without actually really have like the intent that you'd have on Playa. And I found myself asking that question so much more intently to every single person that I was engaged with, because they were all trying to figure out how to like navigate in this new world and being scared. And to this day, even now that things are more lax and we're kind of like getting back to this thing, I still check in with people. Because the other day I went to like a local bar that it's like, they have this outdoor setting. And I asked the bartender, I'm like, how are you? And he was like, excuse me? And I said, how are you? And he's like, I'm not good today. I was like, it's okay. It's okay not to be good. And I think like that for me is what I've taken from my Playa experience and turned into COVID, is just like checking in on people more regularly, especially those people that have been like trying to work and navigate through this without being able to stop or work from home. And so that's what I've taken from it.
Thanks, Alex. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people talk about how the Playas prepared them for the pandemic and the power outage in Texas and the fires in California. This past year has been wild. And I think that there are definitely, kind of lessons that have applied across for all of us. So that's really cool to hear how it has for you. I noticed that Inflation Station actually, I think your hand was down for a second, but I think you were actually before Andre. So we'll take you, Andre, and then Prince.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention that the momentum traditionally building up to the burn with our neighbors and our community here, especially in San Francisco, through a lot of the theme camp fundraisers, is not happening now, right? So it's very different not to see your friends and your theme camps and your neighbors out on the town raising money, getting ready. And it's a very different atmosphere this year. And then the other one is I want to bring up the point, as we all know, that it's so important to get to know your neighbors ahead of time, if possible, through Burning Man connecting us, because then we can email to either share resources or actually just to get to know them. Because once you're pre-arrival, it's great to like, hey, we've met before, how's it going? We meet for the first time, or even better, meet before you even get to the playa, right? Through somewhere, a local coffee shop or whatever. But once the gates open, it's very hard to keep in contact with your neighbors because everybody's so busy, and then your theme camps are running and this and that. So everybody kind of just disappears into the crowd. But if you have a strong relationship, either pre-playa or pre-build, then it's really so much easier to stay in contact through the burn. But it's amazing how if you're not really tight, things kind of drift away. And then it's like, oh, they were great at pre-arrival, but then you never saw them again. So the better the relationship is earlier on, the stronger the entire burn is with your neighbors.
Yeah, that's a great tip. And I think, some people have a Sharpie on hand to like write on their arm, maybe write it down on something more permanent. Andre and then Prince.
Hey everyone again. So I live in San Francisco and it's popular here. It's a lot of people here live in communal homes where you have like a group between 6 and 40 people living in the same house. There are hundreds of them, of such homes. So it's like slightly broader than one neighborhood, but there has been a really cool event where approximately 10 homes agree to host like a party at the same day, and it's called a co-op crawl, where people from all like 10, sometimes 20, 30 houses visit each house, and it's a new house every hour. So from that, I was having the same experience that I was getting on the playa, where you meet 200 new people in a day, and your brain is just fried from the amount of new connections that you get, and you visited 10 parties in a day. So that was a very, very unique thing that I've experienced only on playa, with like overwhelming number of people and events. So in San Francisco, it's been going like across like 3 neighborhoods, so it's a walkable distance. So the whole crowd walks to a new house every hour, and each house hosts something.
Wow, that sounds really interesting and cool. Prince, you're up next.
So our camp, we're spread over, like a lot of camps, we're spread all over the place, but you know, we have a lot of different activities that are happening a lot in LA and New York and in the Bay Area. And in the Bay, we've gotten together with camps and invited other people to come volunteer at food banks, because there's a great need for that. In the Oakland Alameda Food Bank, they process feeding about 8,000 people every time you volunteer. So making meals, and it's great way to bring a group together. Also, I started a drive-in movie theater in Oakland and I started that. We had to shut it down because of once we went back into shelter in place. And so we're restarting that again. But I've done over 20 events, and we usually have about 20, 30 cars. But I worked with our local city council person when I realized that church services were allowed, and I was reading the description. I'm like, wait, a church service? I'm like, I could have a drive-in. And so we started doing that and giving some of the funds, because I was just like, let's just ask people for a donation, and then we would find a drag queen or someone who worked at a bar who was out of work, and we would give them that money. And so that was great. And we had all the power supplies. So, I mean, we had the solar generators and, you know, everything. So it's like everything was, we could go anywhere and host it. But I worked with our local city council person and woman and found a location in Oakland at the Oakland Estuary Park, and they allowed us to do it there. In LA, we have, of course, as many, but you know, they've been doing sharing circles and inviting. Our community is about 120 people, but we've extended it out. And in those, they've done monthly, actually it's bi-weekly, anti-racism classes on how to improve allyship. And I love that that was led and created and spearheaded 100% by allies within the community. No one came to me and said, Prince, how do we do this? So great, so happy that didn't happen. Also posting jobs on our Facebook page. A lot of people are looking for work, so we've been posting jobs on that. So those are just some things we've been doing.
Thanks, Prince. Yeah, it's how do we keep the burn going? How do we keep your own tribe connected? How do you help out the folks that need it the most? And yeah, those are really great examples. Go ahead, Prince.
Oh, and one more. This Wednesday, we have a group volunteering to go walk the streets in Chinatown in Oakland. So another way to volunteer as well to support Stop Asian Hate. That's really important to do right now.
Thank you, Prince. We are getting close to the end of this. We have about 15 minutes left, 14 minutes left. So I'm curious, are there other people that would like to have a chance at the microphone and share a story about how you're bringing neighborliness and the lessons you learn on Playa into the world, or anything about just this topic in general, something that's maybe sparked in your imagination during this talk? Then go for it.
Yeah, thank you. And Jeff mentioned this earlier. Thank you, Jeff. But combining the two, we've begun communicating with others of our neighbors in the 9 o'clock sector and communicating all year about collaboration and so forth. And we actually held a retreat a year ago of camp leads in our sector and brought them all together for a weekend retreat. I'm actually right here behind me. And it was the last thing we did before the shutdown happened. But to build community during the year, not just on playa and doing all the wonderful things and the great stories that I've heard tonight about cooperation and so forth, but trying to do it also throughout the year. And it just, yes, about what we do on playa, but also what we do off playa. And it's been really great. And we're going to continue to do that to build a community with our fellow camp leads off playa. I think that's a really important part of this, to bring it home.
Thanks, Ethan. And how did that even come about? Did it start on the playa, or did someone just, I'm curious how that happened.
One of my co-leads just decided we should have a retreat and bring together the co-leads of the other camps in our sector. And so we broadcast to the leads we knew in the area and said, let's have a weekend retreat and talk about, first of all, let's just get together and have fun, because, after all, it's Burning Man. And then we'll do a little bit of business in the middle of it about talking about how we can cooperate before, during, and after the event. And what can we do during the build week to help each other? And all the many, many, many things that people have talked about tonight. That was our rich conversation and all the many ideas that bubbled up. And Jeff's right. And then COVID hit and, it didn't all happen. But we're going to revive it. We're absolutely going to keep that going to make a more vibrant community on playa in our neighborhood, to make a better neighborhood for those who are walking through it, to make a better neighborhood for those who are building it and being part of it throughout the event, but then also off playa to build the friendships that we have there. So it's not just, oh, I see these people once a week, but we also see them elsewhere. And to take the joy and excitement and love and so forth that we create on playa and then bring it back home and enjoy it further. It's just what we do in our camp, actually. I mean, our camp is now, we've been holding weekly Zoom calls with people all over the world who are part of our camp. And we've done it 53 weeks in a row. So it's bringing the playa back home in every way we can. And hi there, Lee.
There's waving at a baby happening, in case you're wondering. There's several babies actually on. And
They can be jealous.
Oh, hello to the babies. Hello to the puppies too. I see a dog somewhere. Great. I'm going to use that actually as a segue really quick. I know that placement just announced last week, obviously, that we are encouraging camps to start talking to each other. If you were a place camp there's a form to fill out. But one of the actual things that we're trying to improve in the process, and I noticed some points in chat, Prince was like, why doesn't placement host a meeting for all the camp leads in the sector? We do really want to emphasize the idea of resource sharing, and we're going to try to find ways where we can facilitate that, whether that's a live Zoom call, maybe it's a discussion group that people are a part of. There's a few other spaces that we're looking at, but I know a lot of times camps are like, tell us who our neighbors are. And I think we are going to work at that, but it's far better for you to tell us who you want to be your neighbors, because you've already cultivated those relationships, because you've already built that trust. And so just know that that's some change that's going to be happening this year, but also in coming years in the placement process. We want to build that time for people to actually meet and talk and connect, and then say, hey, actually, let's go in on generator together. Let's sign a contract together. Those things are hard for placement to mandate, but really come with ease if you know the people that are showing up year to year to the playa. So just know that is on our queue of things to do, and we are really looking forward to seeing how that plays out this year. I'm gonna, are there any other last things people want to say? Because I will start wrapping up otherwise. Anything from our panelists?
A shout out to you, Level, and all of the people who are backstage right now, making all of this happen and doing really well. Thank you so much for bringing us all together. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ethan. Okay, well then I will start wrapping us up. First, I want to thank our panel. Let's do spirit fingers for the panelists. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you all for just sharing your knowledge and experience. And I know some of you we just asked like a day or two ago to join us, so thanks for that. And then also more spirit fingers, like Ethan was saying, for the camp support team that put this on. Specifically, PETA here today was the producer. Just so you know, Burning Man's participatory. So if you are interested in helping out, if you want to be more backstage than front stage, that's all available. If you want to help, if there's a topic that's like burning that you really want to bring people together around today at our peak, we think we had close to 50 people on the call. Just reach out to campsupport@burningman.org and we will make sure we capture that and then bring you into the fold. Our next talk is Tuesday, April 27th. The title is "A Mom, a Dom, and a Priest Walk into a Bar, Establishing Boundaries and Acceptable Spaces in Black Rock City." So, it's all about consent. The blurb that we are going to send out is, are you being a creep? How would you know? While freeing your mind, it can be easy to assume that the dusty life is a free-for-all. But April's event is on subtle arenas of consent and for camps who want to up their competency in welcoming a stranger and holding boundaries. So please come for that. It'll be a very similar format. I also want to put on your radars that we are planning a camp symposium, formerly known as Theme Camp Symposium, but we noticed that it's not just theme camps that are there. That is scheduled for May 22nd. So mark your calendars. We are producing that with a lot of really action-packed content. You might have noticed last year when we had the camp symposium, it was like, is there a pandemic happening right now? Looks like there's a pandemic happening. What does this mean? So we're going eyes open. There's still a pandemic. So we're trying to design it to be even more engaging than it was in 2020. The last thing I'll say is that we have a survey. I know that we've had some folks sharing that link to you all. It's an evaluation form to help us kind of see how we can make these even better and more interesting for you all. So please, thank you, Epiphany, for just sharing that link. If you just spend 2 minutes to fill it out, it's very short. Yeah, that's all I got for my final announcements. It's always wonderful to see you all. I know there's some folks that have made it out. This is our fifth Campfire Talk. So we've been doing this monthly for 5 months, and some of you I think I've seen all 5 times. Thank you all for being here. I hope to see you all the next time around. So with that, I'm going to end this. Thank you all. Be well. Take care of yourself.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Be good.
Stay lovely.
Bye.